And this is Ken Kreitzer for CBSI Services Talking Business, our interview series talking with leaders in the field of banking, insurance, customer service, digital marketing, and business education, and all to highlight the great work of our team at CBSI in Harrison, New York. We provide insurance-based benefits to the credit card and payments industry and customer service management. And always a shout out to our team taking care of our clients and their customers 11 months now remotely, now that we've been working at home, and great teamwork by our staff. Now, I have a chance to introduce a good friend of ours from the Dayton, Ohio area, and that is Bruce Clapp, who's the president of MarketMatch, works with banks across the country, a full-service digital agency. Bruce, good to see you. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Ken. How you doing?
Real good, real good. I think it's just a touch of spring here in New York. I think it hit 50 degrees, so we're enjoying that. But Bruce, it's been a challenging year. You and I talked last summer. We thought things might get back to normal towards the fall, and it didn't happen. And certainly a very tragic time in the winter months, the holidays. How has it been for you and your customers and banks you work with?
I'll tell you, it has definitely been challenging. And, one of the things that our credit union and bank clients were worried about last summer when you and I spoke is what's the outcome of this going to be? And I think that largely is still kind of unsettled. But what our credit union and bank clients have determined to do, and what we advise them to do, is we got to start making our own future. We can't wait for the future to unveil itself. We have to kind of create what it's going to look like, and take into account all the known variables we have right now and deal with the unknown variables as they come along. And some things that I think are going to stick after this pandemic, which I think are going to dramatically change how we communicate with our customers and our clients and our prospects in the future. One is obviously, like what we're doing right now, is the advent of video. Video used to be something that was nice to do and kind of fun to do. Now it is a precursor and a mandatory for everyone, and people are comfortable with it. So, I think that's going to stick. The second thing is where and how people can do transactions, which has brought to life some of the Fintech. I know we're going to be speaking about that a little bit, but how people transact their business has changed dramatically. For a period of time, they could not go to the bank or credit union because it wasn't open. And so they had to kind of rethink what they're doing, how they're doing, and some of those things are going to stick also, where, we saw debit card transaction counts and ticket numbers go up. Credit card transactions went up in some categories and fell precipitously in others. So some of those changing buyer behaviors are going to change. And one of the biggest things, I think, is how people are searching information. Prior to the pandemic, people would, talk to their friends and coworkers and this kind of thing. And now they're doing this right now on their computer because they're sitting at home like you and I right now in our home offices, working remote. And so how I get information is now much more digitally driven than ever before. It was always digitally driven, but I think it's now digitally driven way further down into the funnel of how I'm going to decide where I'm going to buy from and how I'm going to get that information than ever before. So those are just a couple things I think are going to stick post-pandemic.
Absolutely. Now, when we talked last summer, we talked about the impact of the stimulus bill that Congress approved last year, and the role of the community banks in helping commercial customers with the Paycheck Protection Program. And the loan portion of that. There was another stimulus in December and another one being discussed by the Biden administration, $1.9 trillion. What are your thoughts on how the banks have helped customers with these stimulus programs, and what is the impact of them? How are they helping both the banks and the customers, do you see?
Well, I think it was both a help and a hindrance. It just like everything, is kind of a dual-edged sword. When the PPP first came out, I mean, there was just an absolute flood. My banker friends were working 24 hours a day almost, and everybody, whether you were a branch manager and an EVP, head of HR, you were processing PPP loans because it was that much of a volume. It was new. It was we're kind of flying the plane and building the plane as we're going along, which is different now in the second stage of PPP. But the volume has pretty greatly diminished, and part of that is because of people now understand what it is or what the challenges are with it. But there's also the loan forgiveness aspect and qualification. There's a lot of businesses that are no longer there that tried to get or did take PPP previously. But I think the positive aspect is it gave a lifeline to a lot of small businesses around the country that are imperative. Because a lot of these businesses were struggling, no fault of their own. It was not faulty management or bad business practices. It's just the customer demand went away because of the impact of the coronavirus. So the PPP threw a lifeline to a lot of businesses, and a lot of small community banks stepped in and really helped the Main Street businesses and the Main Street customers kind of subside during this time period. And what the silver lining for banks is I think that this also will help these organizations see their way through. And we've also seen businesses reinvent themselves. You know, there's an area restaurant around the corner from us that they're now about 70% carry out. And they didn't hardly do carry out at all prior to this. And now, so that is now a major source of their business. So they're actually more efficient now. They're seeing record sales because they've rethought how they do their business. So the PPP has stabilized a lot of businesses. So now kind of traditional credit underwriting can take place once again as we head into this summer. So I think that's a silver lining for the banks and the credit unions around the country.
Absolutely. Now, we were talking earlier about changing consumer patterns. The pandemic is making years of change happen in a matter of months, and certainly for banks have had to pivot very quickly to improve online service, but also improve drive-through service. What do you see on the consumer side of banks with your credit unions that you're advising that they need to do to help build consumer confidence going forward?
Well, a couple things. One is I think that they have learned that they need to be much more vigilant in their product reviews and their service reviews and their process reviews, because this pandemic has exposed a lot of kinks in the armor where information flows stopped at one particular point. So if one person is out, maybe they got the coronavirus or had to quarantine, things stopped. So I think it has exposed a lot of areas that they have to be more diligent in following those processes through, and not just assume that it's working, that it will continue to work. They need to kind of pressure sense a lot of processes and things like that. I think that they've learned that they can do a whole lot more virtually than they ever thought of before. If you would have asked a banker or a credit union executive a year and a half ago, if they could have made it through by closing their branches for a month, they would have said absolutely not, because we are an in-place business and it has to be that way. And you know, our staff can't work remote because they're tellers or they're loan officers. Well, we've learned that they actually can. So that's going to be an important part, and they've seen how important internet access is for our staff and for the organization. You know, we had one credit union client that their bandwidth got exposed when all of a sudden they had to have everybody working on the internet and trying to go in through VPN, things like that. They had to pretty quickly upsell their own internet bandwidth. So I think there's a lot of lessons learned from this, and I think what we can also take into account is that because consumer buying behaviors have changed, you know, when people spent all that time at home, they looked around and said, you know what, I really don't like the colors of my kitchen, or I really don't like my backyard because I'm spending time in it now and it's not what I want to spend time in, and I'm not going to be traveling, I'm not going to buy a new car right now, so I'm going to put the money into those things. So, you know, therefore we saw, I have a friend that owns a pool company, and they're completely at capacity through the year 2024 at pools. So it is amazing how things like that have turned. You know, he was happy that he would build demand each year for that summer. Now he's 2 years in advance. So a lot of things have happened in that regard. So it changes how people are buying things, what they're spending their money on, how they're evaluating their environment. Their environment is no longer passable. They want it to be progressive. So a lot of those things, again, change how people see their everyday environment and how that's going to translate into loan need and transaction need and account need and support need. People have learned that they can go without their banker seeing them in person, but they can't go without their banker talking to them, whether it's through Zoom or other things. So again, how we reach our customers is going to be different. We had business development officers that they would live off of going to lunch and taking the customers and doing those things, and they can't do that now. So they had to rethink their methodologies of reaching out and staying in contact with their customers as well. So all important learnings.
Absolutely. Now, it's certainly an important product to banks and credit unions, as well as other banks are payment mechanisms, credit cards, and certainly the travel and entertainment part of the credit card industry has really been diminished. Although some categories such as groceries, home improvement, as you just said, business services. I think we all went out and bought a new office chair this year for our home offices. I know I got one for my wife and myself early on in this. What do the credit card marketers need to be thinking about as hopefully travel opens up mid-year and travel and entertainment opens up later this year?
Well, I'll tell you, it's really interesting because we've done a lot of work with our clients over the past 6 months, evaluating their portfolio and understanding what the repercussions of that are. And a couple things have jumped out, at least from the client portfolio that we work with. As you said, e-commerce is way up. Fuel is actually is down as far as I thought it would be, but then I take a look at what, like, my wife and I did a lot during the pandemic. We went for drives just to get out of the house. So, we didn't take road trips, but we did a lot of driving. So, that's an interesting kind of aside. But I think balance transfers are gonna be huge this year, because you may not get as many new card owners, but you should take a look at line activation, line extension, and balance transfers. Those are three things I think are going to be imperative for our banking client, our credit union clients, to take a look at this year and really leverage and think differently than they have done in the past. Because a lot of times people are perhaps a little hesitant to do line increases because for various reasons. But I think that is a safer way to line increase an existing customer than to get a brand new customer right now. So, a lot of our clients seem to be a little apprehensive on new client acquisition in cards. So again, I think line activation, line extensions, and balance transfers are going to play an important, critical part for maintaining a vibrant, healthy card portfolio.
Absolutely. We've had quite a few experts say that acquiring customers may not be the priority, but maintaining customer relationships certainly is. Now, absolutely. One of the things that we talked to a mutual friend in an interview last month, Dan Breining, who is CEO of Lakeshore Bank in Dunkirk, New York. Had a great talk with him and how he's serving his customers. And one of the things he did talk to us about is for smaller banks using Fintech and going to try to meet customer expectations set by really larger institutions, but being able to maintain what they can do for customers through Fintech. Maybe take us a little bit through where are some of the directions in Fintech that smaller banks want to look at?
Absolutely. Well, I'll tell you, you're seeing the impact of Fintech almost everywhere you look. Affirm is a large player in this game, and you can go on to almost any e-commerce site right now, and Affirm will have a presence there. Taking what might have been a $200 purchase, and you can now pay it over 3 months, and Affirm is going to be the agent for that. So, Fintech is finding its way into everyday life, whether it is on the lending side, getting quick cash. It is, financing things that you may not have considered financing before, but might make sense to you for cash management reasons, or it's about investing. SoFi is another example of they have a multidisciplinary portfolio that started off with just doing lending. And matter of fact, very specific lending. And now they do student loans, they do mortgages, they do home equities. They have an investment platform. You can buy and sell stocks and do day trading and some things like that on their platform. So they have evolved pretty quickly because there's a pent up need. And I think the lesson to be learned from banks and credit unions around the country is that ingenuity is critical. And understanding what your customers want and need and how they're activating their life today is different than it was 10 years ago or even 5 years ago. People have a different outlook on life. They are doing it based on cash needs and cash availability. And that is a different model than typically what our banks have been doing. So therefore, a tunnel has opened up and fintechs have jumped in there, some of them quite handily.
Absolutely. And we're talking with Bruce Clapp, who is the president of Dayton, Ohio-based MarketMatch, has a 25 years experience working in the banking industry, marketing communications. And Bruce, maybe tell us a little bit about your company and the services that you provide to the banking industry.
Excellent. Thanks, Ken. We are a marketing strategy firm, and we demonstrate our value proposition with 3 key words, and they are focus, momentum, and results. The first one being focus. There's so many things that a bank or credit union could do, strategy-wise or tactic-wise, and part of our skill set is helping them to identify what are the best actions for their organization in their marketplace. So creating a very clear strategy, a go-forward process, so focusing what their efforts are in important ways are going to move the needle for them. And then it's momentum. So then it is creating the creative aspects. It's the digital marketing. It's the traditional marketing that's going to excite their staff, excite their customers, and excite their marketplace about where they're headed. So that momentum is critically important as they move forward. And then lastly, it's results. Because at the end of the day, we are measured and monitored, and we get our next client on how successful we are in moving the needle for our clients. So we help them track results. We have an ROI guarantee for everything that we do. So it's kind of like marketing insurance. And when I'm sitting across from the table with a CEO and a CFO, and I can look them in the eye and say, we're gonna guarantee that we're gonna move the needle and generate incremental results for you, and I'll put my dollar on the table and guarantee it for you. That speaks loudly in the confidence that we do and the confidence that they should have in us and the results that we're able to deliver for our clients.
Well, that's terrific. Bruce Clapp, president of MarketMatch. Do you have a final thought for us, perhaps about what messaging tone that bankers should consider for marketing messages going out to their customers and prospects this year?
Well, I tell you, I think it revolves around 3 things, and one is we still need to take a long-term view, but we have to put in place short-term actions for our customers and for our staff, because people are right now not thinking retirement, thinking about how am I going to pay for my vacation, or am I going to get a vacation, or how am I going to make it through my job change, or whatever the case may be. So we have to put short-term successes in place, but still keep an eye on that long-term planning. So that's item 1. Item 2 is we have to be more relevant to our customers than ever before. We have to be where they're at. So digital marketing, digital communications are imperative, because our customers right now are searching on the internet for everything that impacts their life, even more so than ever. My father just turned 80, spends most of his time on his iPhone now. Why? Because he's not doing anything else. So we have to be where our customers are at, and that has changed. Where they're at has changed. And the last thing is we have to have products and services built for the speed of life. As we quickly learned the pandemic, the life can change on a nickel, and we have to be able to be responsive to that. So we have to have our staff and our processes and our people ready to be able to turn on a dime and be responsive to the speed of what life is for our customers and for our staff. So those are the things I think are imperative right now.
Well, Bruce Clapp, great to talk with you today. We appreciate your insight into the banking industry, working with hundreds of banks around the country, and your experience. I really appreciate you sharing that with our CBSI Talking Business interview series today.
Thanks, Ken. I appreciate the opportunity. Have a great day and stay warm.
Absolutely. Spring is here in New York and hopefully around the country. And really, again, this is Ken Kreitzer for CVSI Services Talking Business. All to highlight our team at CVSI. We provide insurance-backed benefits to the credit card and payments industry. And we'll be back very soon with another episode of CVSI Talking Business. Thank you again to Bruce Clapp. Everybody, have a great day. I'm at my home office in White Plains, New York. Have a great evening.